Good morning, everyone. Thanks a lot for being here with us. Our panel discussion this morning, we're talking about teacher internships, externships, and probably a little bit more. We're going to see a whole bunch of ways in which we are tying classrooms to career. Ways that we can get students engaged, ways that we can get teachers engaged with different businesses and organizations all over the state of Iowa. This morning as we were sitting around tables and talking about our students and how do we get them better prepared for this future that we keep talking about. Someone at my table mentioned, students don't have skills. Students don't know what's out there. Well, the question is that their fault? Is that their fault that they don't have those skills? Is it their fault that they don't know what's out there? Well, that's something, thank you for sharing that, by the way. That's something that we need to do a better job of. And I think some of the programs that we have going on in the state of Iowa right now are attempting to bridge that gap and getting people connected. So, that's what we're going to hear more about. And I don't want to talk too much more, so I'll introduce our panelists. Amy Williams, Amy, thank you, Director of Human Resources at the White's Company. The White's Company was part of a teacher externship program this previous summer, and we'll hear more about that program here in a little bit. Alex Leebrecht, right next to him, mathematics teacher at Dowling Catholic High School in West Des Moines, and he was a teacher extern at the White's Company last summer. Karen Swanson, and Karen directs the Educators in the Workplace program. It's offered through Indian Hill Community College and through their Get Connected program, and is part of the Iowa statewide intermediary network. Terry Voss. Okay, Terry is in corporate communications at the Vermeer Corporation, and Vermeer has a teacher intern program. Sarah Rowe. Okay, Sarah is a business, talented and gifted teacher and school to work coordinator at Linville-Sully High School, and she was a Vermeer teacher intern participant. And then next to me, John Gianforte. He is an education specialist for IJAG, Iowa's Jobs for America's Graduates. And I think I got everybody. And my name is Jason Lang, and I guess I always like to list my first job. I am a high school science teacher at Cedar Falls High School. And then what occupies the rest of my time, I help to co-manage the teacher externship program that we have that's run through the Iowa Governor STEM Advisory Council. And so that takes up, I think it actually takes up most of my year. I don't think there is really a downtime for us. We currently have 62 teachers working all throughout the state right now that we're overseeing. So this is a little blip until I get back to overseeing those teachers. So with that, I think introductions and program administrators. We'll start with some questions here. Program administrators. So I've got Karen, Terry, John, and myself. I'm going to give you a chance to describe your program. So, John, since you're right next to me.
Well, thank you for having us. My name is John Gianforte. I'm an IJAG, Iowa Jobs for America's Graduates education specialist at Cedar Rapids, Washington High School in Cedar Rapids. And we fancy ourselves as probably one of the better dropout prevention programs in the state of Iowa, with 94% of all of our students in a 4-year course of study graduating from high school. But we'd like to try to add on to the dropout prevention tag of more of a leadership academy. And we take kids that have multiple barriers in life, small problems, big problems, but issues that could possibly prevent them from graduating from high school, let alone attaining post-high school secondary employment or education. And we try to teach our students just a lot of things we learned upstairs, 21st century skills. We bring in a number of wonderful business members in our community. We heard Mr. Glue at Economic Alignments at Marion High School, or Marion, City of Marion. We try to bring in a multitude of businesses from a mentorship for our students, just to get to know people, and also for internships and possible externships for our students as they progress up the line. I teach the 9th and 10th graders at Washington High School, and that's more or less the 21st century skills and just helping our students become aware of who they are and where they want to be, and then bringing in partnerships that can help them with those opportunities. And then at the 11th and 12th grade level, we put the plan that we developed for our kids in 9th and 10th grade in place. We hear pipe fitting and plumbing. I have former students of mine making a lot more money than I am, and I've got a decent amount of education. They've got better skills, hands-on, work-related skills, and they're making a lot more money than we are. We bring in business folks from ADM and Pearson and Rockwell, not just engineers and not just accountants, but call center people, people that work in the day-to-day operations. And we try to show our kids through 21st century skills, positive attitude, staying drug and alcohol free, that you can have a very, very lucrative and successful career, and they don't need a 4-year degree. So we're trying to really emphasize, if our kids are 4-year bound, that is wonderful, outstanding. Go for it. We'll help you get there. We have partnerships with Kirkwood and Mount Mercy and University of Iowa. UNI, we bring our kids up to UNI often as well. But if you're not 4-year college bound, it's okay. It's not only okay, it could be really good. So let's work on those apprenticeship skills, those internship skills, get those internships and externships, make you aware of those, and let's put a plan in place. We also do work with Kirkwood Community College in dual enrollment programs, which help kids gain 2-year hands-on college credit and apprenticeship skills while they're in high school, which can only enhance their opportunity to start and build their career as they graduate from high school. So again, IJAG, Iowa Jobs for America's Graduates. Thank you.
Send it over to Terry. Okay, so Terry, tell us a little bit about Vermeer's program.
I'd love to, and thank you for inviting us to be a part of this. So Vermeer is an advanced manufacturer of heavy equipment, industrial and agricultural equipment. And what we learned many years ago already is that so many students don't know what manufacturing is, or they and their parents have this perception of manufacturing that is not the reality. In fact, we look at a lot of statistics from the National Association of Manufacturers, and what we frequently have heard in their research is that of those young people, they've done surveys of young people and found out that manufacturing oftentimes falls at the bottom of the list of things that they would like to pursue in their future because they don't know what it is. But as soon as they get some direct visibility to manufacturing, it rises to one of the top 3. So it's such a testament of what that visibility is for manufacturing. So in 2006, we started a teacher intern program because we do a lot of things with students as well, but we also know that if we can touch teachers have dozens of students at their fingertips. So if we can make an impression with the teachers, we know that they'll take that information back to their classrooms. So we started the program in 2006, and we've done it every summer since then, with the exception of 2 summers where we had to kind of regroup and reevaluate. And it's just been a very, very successful program, and I'll let Sarah in a little bit talk about her firsthand experience as a teacher. But there were 3 primary things that we wanted to accomplish with this program. We wanted teachers to understand the skills that it takes to be in manufacturing, and those can be life skills, soft skills, and it can be specific skills, and that leads to the second thing that we wanted people to teachers to understand, that there's such a diversity of careers within manufacturing. And they often come to us thinking that there's one kind of job within manufacturing, and that's changing, but we still have work to do to help teachers understand, and therefore students understand, all the diversity of career opportunities within manufacturing. And then teachers just don't necessarily know what advanced manufacturing means until they come through our doors, so helping them understand that as well. So the program is 3 weeks long, and we have some perks that really encourage the teachers to be a part of it. We pay them an hourly wage for being at Vermeer for those 3 weeks. We take them through all the areas of our business so that they have a full scope of who we are and what we do. And it's not just about Vermeer, it's about manufacturing in general. And then also they have opportunity to get credit. So whether they choose to get continuing education credits through AEA, or if they're working toward a master's, they can get some credit through Drake to go toward that master's degree. So we try and make it exciting and fun and an incentive for the teachers to participate with us. But then oftentimes, and this is what we hope, that when they leave, they say, yeah, that pay or that credit, that was just a small part of what we got out of this experience. And that's what we want to hear, and that's why we keep doing it. Thank you.
Okay, and then passing to Karen. Sorry, Karen.
I'm Karen Swanson, the Director of High School Programs at Indian Hills Community College, which is about school partnerships. And a few years ago, we were allowed and I guess applied for a grant called the Intermediary Grant. And through that, we developed a program called Get Connected with the idea of connecting our students and our educators to business and industry and making sure that there is a very viable connection, that we can work together on creating that workforce that is needed out there, that we hear about every single day. A few years ago, we developed a program called Educators in the Workplace. And through that program, it brought us also to a collaboration with our local economic developers. In Southeast Iowa, there's a development group called Opportunity Squared, which is a collaboration of 8 different counties who work together on their economic development. So together with Opportunity Squared, we have put together now 2 full weeks of training for our educators with the idea that this externship program is really about exposure. What's in the backyard that you live in? Where can our students and people go to work? And what is that experience going to be like? So for the educators who participate, and it's not just teachers, because we have superintendents, we have principals, we have substitute teachers, we have anybody who needs recertification or who is interested participate in this program. So for 4 days, beginning at 8 a.m. in the morning and going until 4 p.m. in the afternoon, we not only have activities within the classroom, but we get them out into every community, every county that we are serving to ensure that our educators understand exactly what kind of workforce needs there are out there, because that has been a disconnect. And those of you who are in business and industry know that sometimes are in education, we do business a little bit backwards. Sometimes we think we know what our industry needs are without asking our industry partners. So I see one of my industry partners right here today, Agriplastics, and we've taken our educators there last few years, actually not this year, but the last few years. So we actually run 2 separate weeks of Educators in the Workplace. The educators get 2 recertification credits for that. We cap it at 30. The last 2 years, we have been full with a waiting list. Unfortunately, we can't get everybody to do this, but we have had extremely, extremely valuable feedback from those educators, which has prompted us to solidify our partnership with our economic developers and our business partners, as well as our educators as well, and it's just catching on fire.
And I'm going to jump in for a second. And so I help to manage with Megan Reynolds in the back there. We manage a teacher externship program. And before I go any further, just that term externship is maybe a little bit new. The reason why we brought that term in versus an internship, where you're going and learning as if you're in college and you have an internship. You haven't really been out in the professional workforce yet. We use the term externship because we view our teachers obviously as working professionals that are simply going out into a workplace to gain new skills, learn new things, with the intent that they're going to go back to their profession, and that is teaching our students. So that's the reason why we use the term. I don't know if there was a deeper thought in the term externship, but that's one thing to kind of throw out there really quickly. So our program, we began in 2009. And in 2009, we started with 10 teachers working in various businesses and organizations around the state of Iowa. And we've had teachers throughout all kind of STEM fields. We've had technology education. We've had kind of our industrial technology teachers. We've had science, science, mathematics. We pulled in some business ed people occasionally, so a pretty broad group of teachers, and we placed them in business, industry, other organizations within that bigger STEM umbrella. So we're talking John Deere, we're talking smaller manufacturers throughout the state of Iowa. We're talking about places like the DNR, outdoor experiences for our biology teachers, the Army Corps of Engineers, and so on, various county conservation commissions as well. So in 2009, like I said, we started with 10 teachers, and about three years in, we got a $3.2 million grant from the National Science Foundation, and that really propelled us forward and has allowed us to maintain over 50 teachers. We're over 60 this year. Since 2011, I believe. We went 10, 35, and we've been above 50 the rest of the way. Many of the things that they mentioned, our teachers, they receive a stipend, and it's a 6-week experience. We encourage our teachers to go that full 6 weeks. And part of the reason we stretched it out to 6 weeks versus the 3 weeks at what Vermeer has is we encourage our hosts, our extern hosts, to find some kind of a project or various projects within their organization that the teacher really engages and almost becomes an employee, where they get dropped off, and in that first week, I always share with our teachers, you will feel like a deer staring in the headlights. You will feel completely lost and confused, and we usually use that. It's like, think about your students for a second. Many times they might feel like that in your classroom. They spend that first week kind of getting their wits about them, and then they launch into a project. And we, at least in terms of our program, we feel like that extended time really gets them into that workforce and allows them time to get to know all the various aspects of the business or the organization that they're working in, and they can't hide in kind of a work shadow role. We really encourage our hosts. We don't really want work shadows. We want something where our teachers are really truly engaged within that business. So 6 weeks, we give them a stipend. We also offer the graduate credit. We have a credit through UNI. We have a couple license renewal credits as well that are offered up to all of our teachers. In terms of the teachers that have been through the program, we've had a fair number of teachers that have come back, maybe a summer or two afterwards, and there's been a spot somewhere in that 60 where they've been able to go back to another organization. We tend not to send them back to the same place because they've had that experience. They know a lot about it. We really encourage them to go somewhere else and broaden that experience a little bit. So we do have alumni that will come back occasionally, and sometimes we've had some that have been in the same spot as well. So really what you're hearing here with all of us is it's about that connection. We're trying, at least our catchphrase is connecting classrooms to the workplace. Connecting classrooms to the workplace. And that workplace is broad, and as someone mentioned, I encourage all of our externs to get to know that organization as much as they can so they learn not just maybe the science or the math or the industrial technology type jobs, but it's also, many of the organizations, they need lawyers, they need patent lawyers. Share that with your students. I guarantee in my biology and environmental education classroom, I know that, especially in my biology classroom, I know that 95% of those kids are probably not going to go anywhere close to the field of biology. But I share with them, hey, there's lawyers that are out there working for these different organizations. So a little bit of science background could help you land a position like that. There's so many, obviously, the accounting side and the business side and so on and so forth. So I get to offer that to my students year after year after year. And some of the organizations that work with teachers and work with a lot of students, that multiplying effect, I think, is pretty huge. We've had well over 300 teachers in our program that we run. I mean, I think about that. That's been happening since 2009. Magnify that times, the hundreds of students that are going through our classrooms and all of our externs. Like, for instance, we have a teacher that was in year one in 2009. He's back in our program this year. And I asked Tom, I said, hey, Tom, do you still refer back to what you did in 2009? He says, yeah, quite often. So he's had students since 2009 that have continually heard about that experience. And so We've got a lot of, over 300 teachers that are magnifying that experience year after year after year. So anyway, connecting. It's all about connecting. If we have educators, if we have business hosts, other organization hosts, as you're continuing to listen to this, think about how can you make those connections? How can you reach out to your schools? How can you reach out to teachers, educators? How can you reach out to the businesses and the organizations in your community to strengthen that connection and get something started, get a conversation started, a really important thing. So I'm going to jump over to our program participants. So towards the end there, I've got, you want, okay, go for it. Amy, go ahead and jump in.
All right. Well, thank you for coming today and for inviting me, Jason. So I'm Amy Williams, and I do work at the Whites Company. We are a general contractor, so we're in the construction industry. You're actually in one of the buildings that we built. So we have built. Oh, am I not on? Okay. So as a general contractor, we primarily specialize in commercial construction and in industrial construction. And so for us, while we don't have as formal of a program that Vermeer was articulating, we have found the partnership with the Iowa STEM Council as our way to be able to connect with those who are teaching our future workforce. So piggybacking off what Jason was saying, that future workforce for us, making sure that they have that firsthand knowledge of what it's going to be like to be out in the workforce and what our needs are. So Alex will speak next, but he was our extern last summer. And like I said, we've just found this partnership to be so valuable. And in exchange, we do get work product back. So we teach the teacher, and the teacher, in essence, is teaching us and giving us that other perspective on a piece of work that we might otherwise not be able to progress. So you want to talk a little about your project?
Yeah,
Alex,
sure. Okay. All right, so my name is Alex Leebrecht, and I was the extern at the Whites Company. Also, thanks for having me. I appreciate that. So what I did there is I was in the payroll department, and at first I was like really nervous about my experience because like I felt a lot of pressure to try to get stuff done. Like I wanted to provide something back to them. Like I felt really anxious about it. No one was putting that pressure on me other than myself, but I felt that every day, and everybody there was as nice as could be, like just unbelievably pleasant, like really patient. Like I thought many times, like, man, these guys could be great teachers here. Like they're doing really, really well with me. Yeah. So anyway. They had me sit with a couple of people, try to kind of figure out what to do, and I tried to be really proactive too. Like I was like, hey, can I look at this for a while? And I did, and sometimes it didn't go well. Like I did have some time that was like spent trying a task and then failing, which was a great experience. Like that's something I really wanted to share with my students. But I'd say that my experience there was really awesome. I think that I did provide something for your company eventually, so that's good. I had a task that spanned over the whole, like, I think I was there 6 weeks program, so that was kind of the guiding task, but, miscellaneous things came up, and that's kind of what I worked on there. Okay. You want to go?
Sure. Well, I just want to thank Jason for inviting me and the Vermeer Company for providing me the chance to have their 3-week internship program. Like Jason said earlier, I teach business primarily, but I teach at a small school. So I also am the talented and gifted coordinator, and I'm also doing workplace coordination. So I'm placing students into jobs during their senior year of high school. And I'm working with talented and gifted students that, might want to be engineers or other STEM fields. So I have a lot of connections to students, have a lot of conversations with students. I primarily wanted to do the Vermeer internship as a way to learn more about advanced manufacturing and to understand the career possibilities that are out there for my students. I understood what was there for business, but I didn't understand what it meant to be a welder or what it meant to be an assembler or what it meant to run all the machines that are at Vermeer. And I think that was what the Vermeer program really offered me. It offered me connections to professionals that I can connect students to now. I have some freshmen that want to be computer programmers. And I'm like, hey, I know somebody who builds a remote that controls that $1 million machine. You want to go see them? And they were like, ooh, could I? And I'm like, yeah, I know those people now. So I think that's the biggest thing with the Vermeer internship is I got to see so many areas of Vermeer and really see and experience. Our third week, which Terry didn't mention, we were put in a Kaizen team, which I don't know if you're familiar with Kaizen, but it's continuous improvement. And we were building a brand new baler. And I ended up getting trained to handle steel and went and pulled parts that they needed to build the baler. That was part of my experience too. I got to see a former student weld, which was the coolest thing I've ever seen because I won't lie, we might have butted heads in business room because that wasn't his thing. But to sit and kind of watch over his shoulder as he made those welds that were going to be a part of that machine that was going to last 50 years was a cool thing. And just to watch his skill set and watch him do his thing was really neat. I have a lot of students that are going into advanced manufacturing, and just being able to have those connections again, I think is the critical thing. All the time, I can reference things that I learned or saw or know about Vermeer or the other manufacturers in our area. So I think that's my biggest takeaway from those 3 weeks.
Okay, we'll keep coming up the line here back to our administrators, and some of the questions I had for the administrators was a little bit about the recruiting process and how people can become involved. Maybe some lessons you've learned having done this for a period of time now, things that worked and obviously sometimes things don't work. Any changes made and any future plans?
So with the educators in the workplace, we work with our local AEA to help disseminate the information. However, this is our third year in doing it. In the first year, we had 19 educators involved. We cap at 30, so it wasn't full. Last year, we had 2 sessions, 30 students in each session, and we marketed the heck out of it. This year, with very little marketing, we will have 30 plus in each session. So last year we had 65 educators, and this year we'll have 65 educators again who are learning about what's in their backyard. So some takeaways from that is if you build the right program, word of mouth will help take care of that. But also getting involved with your AEA, of course they helped to disseminate that information. That was part of it. But then the local businesses also helped by doing some smaller things within their communities. So some of the offshoot of this is many educators in the workplace for school districts who want to individualize it all on their own, and we can help them with that. So, you know, the promotion, making sure that that it's out there, that it's easy to register for, those are things that I think are very, very valuable to think about if you're going to run an entire program. I did have a question. How many in the audience are educators? Raise your hand. How many in the audience are part of business and industry? Raise your hand, please. Fantastic. Well, we're about 50-50 in here. And as a former English teacher, I was always told to know your audience, so thank you for doing that.
Okay, with our experience, a few things that come to mind. Lessons learned, for example, we did have some simultaneous programs running at one time where we had 3-week internship program going on, as well as a 6-week externship program going on, and they're all good and they meet the needs of different types and styles of educators. We did hear a lot from educators that they wanted a really short, compact, learn a lot in a short amount of time type of a program. So that's one of the reasons why we have stayed the path with the 3-week program, so that gives teachers that want that the option of a shorter program. The other lesson learned that we've experienced is that it doesn't stop with teachers. Guidance counselors became very critical to our program. So we, after doing this a few years, we really started encouraging guidance counselors to come on board. And we're not just targeting one type of teacher necessarily. Obviously, the STEM teachers or those that are connected to STEM fields are important to us, but we include any teachers, basically K through 12, and then also those guidance counselors. So it took us a little bit to figure out who would be interested, and that's why we really started broadening those invitations. And the way that we connect with our attendees, we started out by sending emails literally to principals and superintendents, and we found out, like all of you, principals and superintendents are very busy, so we couldn't stop with just that. We started sending our people to schools to talk to teachers and guidance counselors, tell them about our program, tell them what we were doing. They needed to see somebody and be able to ask their questions, so it wasn't just a matter of sending an email. And I would say too that, you know, maybe some of you envision some of these programs and some great numbers shared as being huge, huge programs. They don't have to be. Our summer programs, the numbers have varied from one summer to the next, just based on what we were able to plan for that particular summer. But some years we've had 6 teachers and guidance counselors. Some years we've had upwards of 12 or 15. But even if any of you are thinking of this as a business and would want to host 1 or 2 teachers, you know, that you would affect all the students then that those teachers come face to face with every day. So that'd be one thing that I would mention, that this is very adaptable to various numbers and various size programs. We've had a total of 67 teachers and guidance counselors participate in our programs since 2006, as I mentioned earlier, and those have come from about 11 school districts. Maybe some of you see that as big or small numbers, I don't know, but it's been impactful, because what we're hearing is what Sarah was sharing, that then they take it back to their classroom, those connections are made, the students come back, the teachers come back to ask questions, and that's where the magic really happens.
Excellent. And we try to put that actually together. In IJAG, Iowa Jobs for America's Graduates, we, as education specialists, and I'm a certified teacher here in the state of Iowa, we are required to have at least 2 externships every summer. And we target our area businesses that are looking for potential students upon graduation to join the workforce. Again, we try to target areas and needs of non-4-year college kids. We gauge ourselves on positive outcomes for our students after they graduate from high school. Positive outcomes, of course, increased attendance, increased GPA, and then upon graduation, a clear-cut plan of what they're going to do, whether it's a 2-year school, 4-year school, trade school, or go right into the world of work. So with our externships, myself and my colleagues, we go to ADM, we go to Cargill, we go to Principal Financial, we go to Pearson, we go to UPS, we do the ropes course at Camp Dodge here in Des Moines and Ankeny area, and we visit these places of employment, these businesses, and we learn everything we can about them. Now, teachers don't go for 3 weeks. We go for a couple days, and we gather as much information as we can. We call employer engagement. We're building bridges between our school system and the local economy, employers. That is my job. I'm a high school teacher. I'm not a business expert. My job is to go seek these business experts and through our externships, spending our time at Pearson and Rockwell and UPS and McDonald's and Hy-Vee, anywhere we can find, then part of our employer engagement bridge is to bring these folks back to our classroom for a visit. We pique that interest, and whether it's manpower, talking about the actual industry and the trends and the numbers and all those types of things, and the Men's Warehouse, dressing for success, and how to dress up for a job interview, and the Workplace Learning Connection. We do mock interviews every fall and every spring. We pique the kids' interest. Then once the kids enter our junior, senior level IJAG, Iowa Jobs for America's Graduates program, then the business connections that we have made, starting with that externship in the summer, with the classroom visit following sometime during that school year, and we keep that connection. And these visits, some of these visits are a one-time deal, and maybe it didn't work out, maybe it's not a great partnership, what have you. we like to try to encourage the businesses that we do our externships. You're coming every year, and in some cases, you're coming every month. The U.S. Army comes every month. Pearson comes every month. Rockwell comes every month. Van Meter Incorporated in Cedar Rapids, they come every month, and they're building relationships with their kids. Our kids, in essence, are having what? They're having a perpetual interview. So when they're ready for an actual internship or a job opportunity, I remember that kid. He was in Mr. G's IJAG 9th grade, 10th grade classroom, in our 11th grade, 12th grade classroom. That was a pretty good kid. They were pretty engaged. They did a really good job. All of a sudden, their resume right to the top of the list. But it all starts with that externship of me, a business layperson, finding out what I have in the Cedar Rapids general area. How can these folks, and we do some self-assessments with students and diagnostic tests with their students to find out what they want to do to the best of our ability in 9th and 10th grade. And then we bring that knowledge and that expertise back, and we start building that bridge between our kids, at-risk kids, not sure on where they want to be, what they want to do. Boy, oh boy, this guest speaker, or this field experience, going out to UPS at the airport, at the Eastern Iowa Airport, seeing people loading cargo areas and bays and getting paid very handsomely, and the hours that go along with it that can work maybe into a part-time college schedule or what have you. It's just opening up opportunities that I wouldn't know unless I did those teacher externships and finding out about area businesses and bringing their expertise knowledge back to our room, us in turn visiting their places of employment, and then hopefully trying to bring it together at the end.
Perfect. Hold that there for a second. And I'll jump in with our externship program. We talked about how do we recruit people, and the 3 weeks versus 6 weeks. That's we've had that discussion many times in our program of shorten it up, keep it at 6 weeks, and we've always kind of fallen back to the 6 week experience, at least for our program. It works for our program. Once again, just to really to force everybody to dive in just a little bit deeper. So trust me, at 6 weeks in some experiences it gets to be a bit of a stretch. In some cases, if we don't have a project that lasts as long as we wanted it to, but to date we've done a pretty good job of making things fit and making things work. So. We have a website. We have a website that you can go to on the Iowa Governor STEM Advisory Council. If you go to their website, you'll see teacher externships, and that's both a teacher link and a business link. So that is open all the time, all year round. We are constantly getting hits and pings on that of a business that's interested, a teacher that's interested in the program. As of right now, and this is kind of a challenge maybe to our businesses out there, we are obviously part of the Governor's STEM Advisory Council. So we have really focused on the STEM fields. I don't know that in a lot of cases there's not a bigger organization helping out the English teachers and the business teachers and things like that. I'll just put that ball in your court. You've got a lot of teachers out there that maybe don't fit our particular model because once again we tend to be focused on the STEM fields. Wow, I can only imagine how many business teachers would absolutely love to be a part of an accounting department, a marketing department at some of the organizations that we have throughout the state of Iowa. So there you go, challenge offered. But like I said, we focus on the STEM people. Karen, you did a really good job. If you got word of mouth is actually getting you to 65 in just like 2 or 3 years, man, it took us like 8 years to get that word of mouth thing. I feel less. I don't know. I got to do a better job. So anyway, we finally this. Yeah, there you go. We really in the last couple of years we kept thinking. We started in 2009 and we kept thinking a couple of years in, when is that critical mass going to hit that enough businesses and enough teachers know about it that it starts to feed on itself a little bit, and we're like waiting. And we're waiting, and finally in these last couple of years, we've got enough people out there and businesses that have been a part of our program that we've kind of reached that critical mass where we have, and our extern hosts, business hosts, organization hosts, you don't know how important it is I think for all of our programs to continue to open your doors. I know that there's barriers to getting in, and barriers. There might be a very, very small loss in productivity, and time is money, and And that's a really important thing. But I think you heard from Alex, our teachers, when they go into those experiences, they absolutely want to contribute to your bottom line. They want to contribute to your positively to your organization and help you achieve the goals that you have. So you're going to get some super motivated people, I think, in all cases, that want to do a good job. So I know that for us, that's oftentimes a kind of a barrier when we go out and recruit with businesses. It's like, well, I don't know what their skills are, and we have our applicants fill out a kind of a job application as best they can, listing their skills, and we, over this period of time, we've been really confident at telling our business hosts that, look, we realize that they may not have every qualification you would want to have from maybe someone that had just graduated college and they've got all the classes and everything, but you have someone that is a professional, and they will absolutely, if they get stopped or stumped in their project that they're working on, they will not be, this is also another reason why we call them externs. Maybe sometimes an intern might just freeze up a little bit and be like, what do I do now? What do I do now? I don't want to look stupid. I want a job here someday. How do I ask this question? Our teachers are like, absolutely, move forward, ask the question, do what they have to do to make things progress forward. So you see some true professionals walking in. They may not have all the skills that you would want on a job application, but what do you know, those skills emerge. They emerge pretty quickly. And our business hosts are generally super pleased with what the teachers can do with the time that they're given. Let's see, anything else with our program? We try to keep, one more thing, we mentioned kind of local businesses. We do try to keep our teachers within a 30 to 40 mile radius, and we feel that that's the best way for the teachers then to bring that back to their classroom, and they can say, I worked at the White's Company. Well, I mean, if you're a teacher in Des Moines Public Schools, they might know that. They might have an uncle that works there. They might have mom or dad works there, things like that, and you kind of create a little bit of buzz in that. We've had teachers at the DNR. Well, and especially, I'm not to pick on our rural schools a little bit, but you're going to have some of those rural kids that they probably have a hunting license, they probably have a fishing license, and when you say DNR, they perk up. It's like, whoa, wait, you were with the DNR. What did you do? And many of those students, just from our DNR experiences, they know the game warden. Okay, they know the person that's going to come check their license. And our teachers are like, well, that is one small part of what the DNR does. And then the conversation starts. Did you know you can do all of these things in that organization? And we think that's a really, really powerful thing. And then as many of you mentioned, you have that local connection. The person that you worked with that summer is 30 miles down the road, is now an easy phone call or an easy email away. I mean, they will, if you email your extern host after the summer, they know exactly who you are, and what do you know? You get a response back right away, and that really kind of greases the wheel a little bit and helps things move forward. So I'm going to move it back down to our participants. And so Sarah, I'll jump in with Sarah a little bit. So Sarah, I guess maybe you mentioned this a little bit, but how do you see this experience? How does this make its way into your classroom discussions and classroom experience now?
I think it comes in a lot of different fashions. Obviously, in my business classrooms, when I have an example that I gleaned from, the accounting department or the finance, or if we're talking about international business, I mean, Vermeer is into so many of those things, and we got to see so many of those things. I think those are just great examples, because anytime you can bring real world examples to students, then they're like, oh, this is like real. Like, it's not just Mrs. Rowe talking about something she learned in college. It's she actually knows people that do those things. So I think that's like the biggest thing in my business classroom is I have those examples. But I think my main motivation for this was to connect with those students that aren't going to go be business majors. Because I feel like I connect pretty well with the students that want to go be a business major. But it's a student like my former student that's now a welder, who he was in keyboarding, which he didn't really want to be there. But finding ways to connect business topics to those students that maybe aren't going to land in business but are going to work at a business, and understand how needing to know Excel when you're working in advanced manufacturing is critical, because they use Excel for all of their testing tolerances and all those kind of things. So it's those kind of examples that I think are really critical. And then working with my school to work students that are some going on to college, 2 or 4 year college, some that just want to go and work. And being able to connect them to people that come in and do mock interviews. Vermeer has been more than willing to come and bring a couple HR people to Linville-Sully and do, 20-minute, half-hour mock interviews. And my students come back and they're like, that's the scariest thing I've ever done in my life. And I'm like, good. And then when they go to that real interview, they come back and they're like, Mrs. Rowe, thanks for letting me do that mock interview. That real one wasn't nearly as scary. And I'm like, okay, that's a good thing. So I think that just being able to connect with all of the students in my room, whether they are headed in the same kind of path that I took through my learning, or the students that, I struggled to understand. I didn't really understand what a welder did before I went to Vermeer. And so now I have students that want to go be welders. And I'm like, honestly, you're going to make more than I make. And I know it's hard work and it's skilled work, but you're going to work hard, but you're going to get compensated very well for that job. So just being able to understand and relate to all the students in my room has been huge, and be able to provide more guidance. I have a lot of conversations with students about what would you be good at? I've had parents come and say, thanks for having those conversations, because they don't want to talk to me. And I'm like, well, I feel like I try to do my best. But, you as a teacher see things in students that they may not see in themselves. And I think those are neat conversations to have. And this experience has just allowed me to have more knowledge base of all those different paths, because there are so many paths out there for students.
Perfect. Alex, you want to share a little bit more about how this has played out? In your
How
classroom?
I've done in my classroom.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sure. So this part I'm really excited to talk about, because I think this kind of gives me an opportunity to say what effect the program has had, on the students. I'd say, so one thing I really like is I think that it helps demonstrate to my students that I'm in a growth mindset where not only am I trying to make my students better, but I am trying to make myself better as well. So when I do things and I say, oh yeah, I went to the Whites Company and I was really nervous about it, but I did really well, and I think this was an awesome experience for me, and I learned a ton while I was there, that my students really saw that I try to make myself better, even when I'm not teaching anymore. And then they start to see like, oh, wait a second, like he tries to make himself better at teaching too. Like he's doing all of these things in the classroom to try to be a better teacher. And actually some really rewarding experience I had at the end of the year, one of my students gave me a thank you card, and they said, I appreciate you always working so hard to make yourself better. It made me try to make myself better this year too, and I really appreciated it. So that was one of the really rewarding experiences from me. Now, that's kind of an intangible, so maybe as far as the tangible part of this experience goes, is I got a much more macroscopic view of my classroom. So it was no longer just this classroom where I'm going to teach my students math. I was going to try to prepare them for whatever experience they were going to have when my class was over. So, for example, I did a 2-week unit on Excel after the following year, where I taught all my students how to use Excel, and I applied the concepts from class to this particular Excel unit. And my principal heard and saw, and he was really impressed with me. So that can be a good thing if you're an educator. So that part was kind of cool. And then also, I think in a traditional classroom, a lot of the time is students work on a very individual basis. In a math classroom, like in other classrooms might be different, but it might be a very individual basis, because you don't want to provide the opportunity to cheat. You don't want to provide the opportunity for plagiarism in other classrooms. But as soon as I was at the Whites Company, like you work with someone all the time. Like you have meetings a lot too. You would like work with someone all the time. Some of your efforts are put towards maybe fixing someone else's mistake. Might be something that you're doing. So I just try to provide my students a lot more opportunity to work together. And actually, a lot of my activities now are, here's a math problem that has a mistake in it, find it and correct it. And I noticed that requires much higher ordered thinking and a lot more collaboration. So that was another huge takeaway for me.
That's great. That's great. Amy, you want to tell me a little bit more, or can you share with us kind of your motivation for participating, and then where might that take you in the future?
So again, our motivation was we felt an obligation to connect with teachers because they do touch our future workforce. So that was absolutely our motivating factor for getting involved. But in absence of having a formal program where we knew and we advertised and took teachers in, the Iowa STEM Council gave us that structure, gave us that program as a company, as our way to get our foot in the door to figure out how to connect with those teachers. And so we appreciated that structure. And like I said, it was an upside for us, a win-win, because we also get a project completed in advance that we wouldn't otherwise get maybe completed. Some of our, lessons learned, though, when you have to figure out what that project is going to look like, it was a trial. There was a lot of back and forth, both with the extern and with us, to try to figure out, what's feasible in 6 weeks, what isn't, because a lot of our work is not going to just be done in 6 weeks. So we had to get very, very precise and very, our scope had to be very clear as far as what we needed to accomplish. And sometimes we failed and had gaps. And again, we were greeted, though, with a very engaged, very motivated extern who asked questions and challenged and was not afraid to say, while you're trying to figure that out, I could step in over here and do this. And that was, like I said, a very much of an upside. Just a very easy way as an employer to be able to get in, to connect with teachers in a structured way that wasn't so daunting as us trying to figure out how to formulate our own program.
Perfect. I'm going to share a couple quick thoughts here before I maybe turn you loose on any final thoughts that you might have. So you may have them, you may not, that's okay. One of the ways that our program, our teacher externship program, tries to ensure that the experience gets back to the classroom in a more formalized way is we talk about project-based learning, and I know IJAG also talks about that as well. So one of the requirements for the 1 hour of graduate credit or the license renewal credit is we require a project-based learning unit lesson, whatever you want to call it. Teachers, you may know the directions we can go with that. But it's a formalized way to get the experience back in the classroom. And the most important part that we really try to hold our teachers to is the evaluation of that project or problem that the teachers give to the students. We want our business hosts to be the evaluators of that. Okay, we want them to come back to the classroom, Skype into the classroom, FaceTime into the classroom, however you can get them back in your classroom and they can interact with students to understand and learn more about students. We feel that's a really powerful thing. So teachers can create lessons like crazy. I mean, that's our thing. That's what we do. But can we bring an outside evaluator where I can step to the side and say, and now here comes a representative from Vermeer. They're going to tell you if that was a good solution or how would that project hold up in terms of maybe their manufacturing processes and so on and so forth. So that's one way that we try to, once again, more formally bring the experience into the classroom along with the stories. I mean, the stories, and the kids ask, what'd you do this summer? And I spent 3 weeks at Vermeer this summer, and let me tell you how cool that was, and all that good stuff. Another thing that kind of hit me, many of our teachers, when we send them out, they oftentimes, they're like, I'm going to learn so much for my content. I'm going to learn so much math, and I'm going to learn so much science, and I'm going to learn all these new techniques and technology education and technology and so on. And usually what comes back is, oh my gosh, our kids need to communicate. They need to collaborate. They need to be creative. It is, and I've gotten better at not setting them up for that. I mean, sometimes I spill the beans early on when we do our orientation meetings, but it is universal. The teachers come back. That's what Alex was talking about, Excel, and the teachers come back and are like, wow, content is important, but the skills that our students need are right there with it. It's not one over the other. They're pretty much right here. And every teacher sees that. And that's maybe some of the most powerful things that you learn being a teacher extern, teacher intern, whatever program you happen to be a part of. So those are some kind of side thoughts of the teachers that have participated in these types of programs. So I guess I'll maybe send it back down this way. I don't care just as the microphone comes along, if you have any final thoughts that you want to share, and I want to try and maybe leave a couple minutes. Yeah, leave a few minutes maybe for some questions from our audience as well. So, final thoughts.
I'm going to pass this down, but I want
That's
it
okay.
back.
Oh, you want it back? Okay.
I want it back later.
All right.
I guess my final thought would be if you are a business person or a teacher, try to figure out a way to help your community take part in some of these things. Last school year, my school spent a half of the day for professional development, and we toured different businesses. And it was K-12 teachers that did that. And it was a lot of legwork for our administrative team to set that all up with the local businesses. But it was such an eye-opening experience, and it was neat to hear what the kindergartners' teacher's takeaway was, or the art teacher when they went to the hospital. And it was just a really neat experience, and it was a nice time. So that's a little mini teacher internship kind of experience. But just connect. And as teachers, I know it's hard to maybe plan ahead to reach out to those business people, but do try to reach out because they want to come in and talk to students, and they are willing and able, and they have huge expertise. And so just take the risk and, call a local business and talk to the HR people or whoever else that you know, and just say, hey, I want to do this. Could you have somebody about social media that could come and talk to my business class? Because businesses and teachers both ways, it's a neat experience for you and your students. Oh, you want it back? Sorry.
Okay, so this is kind of some final thoughts. Is something I really liked about this program is it really did, and I used this word already, it gave me a really big macroscopic view of what I'm trying to do as a teacher. Is it really helped, okay, I'm trying to give my students all of these skills, yes, math, but also all these other skills that they're going to need in the workforce. And it just I adapted it. I gave a few examples, but every day I try to be very specific about different skills they need. So, for example, my problems are not about how many watermelons can you buy with $23. They're now let's say that you're on the phone with someone in South Carolina. What time zone is that, and is that going to be important for this problem? Because when I was at the Whites Company, if I arranged a meeting at 3 o'clock, it wasn't actually at 3 o'clock. It might have been, I did just for the time zone for that type of thing. So just even adding tiny problems like that, I think is so helpful for my students. And one of my buddies recently, he was thinking about doing a program kind of similar to the externship, and he was like, yeah, I might not do it. And instead of giving him reasons why, I just asked him, why wouldn't you? And he couldn't come up with anything other than summer. So in my opinion, I think that the pros significantly outweigh summer.
Some final thoughts. Last week was our first week of Educators in the Workplace for the summer. And so what I failed to tell you is that the educators there had homework. They had reflection homework on a daily basis. So I want to read to you just a couple of the remarks and business and industry partners who are in here. One other partner that we have is Iowa Works, Iowa Workforce Development. And so part of our final day is learning about what resources are out there as well. So I did not share that as also. But some of the remarks, and interestingly enough, from the first day to the fourth day, they became a little more in-depth, I have to say. So some things, it is important to work collaboratively with others. All employers are looking for the same thing, a good attitude and a good work ethic. Factories are clean. Manufacturing involves a lot of technical skills, but many can be gained on the job as well. So those were some of the first things that we heard. And to the final day, interestingly enough, the aha moments were so vast. The variety of them is quite incredible. And Kelly Deemer, who's in charge of the intermediary network, and by the way, every single one of you have access to your local community colleges have an intermediary program, and many of them offer similar programs to what we have at Indian Hills, and it's definitely worth it for you to seek that out and work with what you can in your own backyards to make sure that we are providing the workforce and the connections that we need to provide for our state.
Just want to mention that maybe all of your industries are saying the same thing. I know many of you are. In manufacturing, we're often told that by the year 2025, we'll have 4 million or 4 million open positions, between 3.4 and 4 million open positions, and unless we do something different, 2 million of those will go unfilled. So for the sake of our economies, for our kids, for our communities, we really want to do something different. And I had my aha moment, to follow up with what you said. Our teacher interns, we invite them to bring their students back to Vermeer for different things they might be studying. And one teacher intern brought a group of fourth graders back to Vermeer, and we had a weld simulator set up for them, among other things. And this one little fourth grade girl participated in the weld simulator that day, and she happened to be in a group with mostly boys, and she got the highest score on the weld simulator. She did better than any of the boys, and she just beamed. And I thought, that's great, love to see the smile. But a few days later, I got an email from the teacher, and the teacher said in this email, that little gal is someone who just had never been able to thrive or do well or achieve or win at anything. And you just gave her something to win at, to be the best at. And this teacher said, I have no doubt, as much as she's talking about how good she is at welding to her boy counterparts, that she will be a welder someday. And that was my aha moment.
That's excellent. For the teachers in here that have core curricular subjects that they're being stretched further and further, as we know, you got to stay on your scope and sequence and do those types of things. My only recommendation is to just try to really focus on, like Jason said, is the PBLs, the project-based learning within your core curricular areas. If you can bring in an area business person to be the judge, and it's an outgoing project or it's a presentable project at the end, it's a great way to tie in business community folks to what you're doing in a core curricular area. In IJAG, we do have 81 standards and benchmarks, but how we teach that is very malleable. But one thing we do for sure every day in the classroom is we try to brand ourselves. The kids, they try to brand themselves. We learn this from over and over from HR directors that we visit with our kids, or we go to their place of employment. You're constantly branding yourself. What are you selling? You're branding yourself. So in our room every day, we require our kids, whether you teach math, science, or Iowa Jobs for America's graduates, to say hello and to be courteous and kind and really focus on those 21st century skills. I think that could be taught across the board.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I see our time has stretched to past 12:30 now. So first of all, I'd like to give our panelists a round of applause. Thank you very much, everybody. And if anyone has any further questions, I think we'd be willing to stick around up here up to the front. If you need some contact information or have some other questions, please feel free to come talk to us and we can give you some more information. Thank you for being a great audience, and I hope you have a great day. This is a great opportunity for, really great opportunity for the state of Iowa to get better connected with our classrooms and our careers and our students. Thank you very much.